Hey y'all, Unbreakable here. I am excited to have another survivor on our Survivor series. This one comes to us from TikTok. Now, scrolling through the feed one day, and all of a sudden the algorithms knew what I was looking at, and they dropped this gentleman, blue underscore collar underscore dude, on my feed, on my FYP, as we call it. And he's got some content out there that is silly and goofy and some opinionated stuff. But what caught me and drew me into this is that he's a survivor. So, blue collar dude, welcome. Thank
Hi.
you. I'm so glad that we linked up. I'm so glad that you dropped on my FYP on TikTok. And even more so, I am honored to have you here to share kind of some of your story and your journey. Your TikToks kind of started out kind of goofy and funny. What prompted you to start sharing your story?
Um, I started out on TikTok really just lurking. I just watched stuff, and I always said I'm not gonna post anything. And then, like you said, it kind of started out silly, goofy stuff, whatever I thought was funny. And then I kind of fell into like the opinionated kind of stuff. And then I started seeing um a lot of content regarding domestic violence and sexual assault and things like that. And I would notice in the comment sections, anytime a man was speaking about any kind of abuse he went through, whether it was, childhood abuse or sexual assaults or whatever, there would always be people without fail in the comments, a majority of people asking, well, what did he do to deserve it? Or making that tired comment that, men can't be sexually assaulted because, they enjoy it. Men are crazy sexual, and it really rubbed me the wrong way. Because it's something that I've been through. And when I'm seeing all this stuff, I was just really starting to start therapy, counseling through an online platform, BetterHelp.
Great.
And I had never really taken therapy and counseling seriously before. I had that stoic attitude, that the only emotion men are allowed to feel is either being stoic or angry.
Mhm.
But I went into it with an open mind this time, and my therapist was wonderful and really made me start realizing that I'm allowed to feel emotions too. You know, what I experienced, what I feel, what I think are just as valid as anybody else. So that kind of prompted me to start opening up to my wife a little more,
Mm.
who has, I mean, I can't praise her enough. That woman has been through, I've put her through hell. I have, as a result of my own traumas and issues,
Mhm.
and she's stuck by me. And it hasn't always been pleasant. There's been points where it's been rocky,
Yeah.
but she's always been there. So I started opening up to her a lot more and started sharing parts of my life I've never talked about.
Mhm.
And through her support and her understanding, prompted me to start sharing little bits and pieces here and there. Um, and over time, I wasn't as vocal about it as I have been in the last couple months, but I ended up finding actually a TikTok shop that
Mm.
was selling products. Actually, I'm wearing one of his hats right now.
Yep.
Um, and he reached out to me and asked if I would be willing to, promote some of his stuff. And I said, sure, and I bought the hat and I started promoting it. And I think the video you saw was actually one that I had responded to a comment and tagged the link for this hat on.
Mhm.
Um, and after the response I got on that, and the amount of men specifically in there who were saying, I've never talked about this before. I'm in my 50s. I'm in my 60s. Or private messages I would get as like, thank you for speaking out, and the amount of women in there who would talk about their husbands or their brothers,
Yeah.
who would send me messages or make comments talking about the same thing. My husband has been through this and never talked about it. Really kind of gave me encouragement to say, okay, I'm at a point where I can talk about this. It's not easy sometimes. Some days are harder than others, but
Oh yeah. Yeah.
it gave me that encouragement to say, okay, I may not get a lot of engagement on these videos, but if I can just reach one person, just one, that's all I need, that's struggling and maybe thinks, they're alone with it, or there's no hope for them to ever heal or grow. That's what matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I will keep posting about it on TikTok until either it sticks around or it's gone. And I will be posting as well on X.
On X, yeah.
Also, I've also considered making a Facebook page, specifically for, this kind of thing too. But yeah, in answer to your question, just kind of the encouragement of seeing how many other people needed it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether my voice was theirs or they had their own. Hold on one second.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've already talked to David at Tape Bar. I'll get it in there in a minute. Hey.
We got a blue collar dude here, and I love that.
I have a load of 60-foot long rebar on a flatbed right now. So
you tell me if you need to run or if you need to go. I know.
Oh, no.
Okay. All right.
No, I'm okay.
What I love, what I respect so highly of you, especially, not only just speaking up and speaking out and sharing your story and your healing journey and the traumas that you've had to endure, is that your screen name fits. You are, you're a blue collar guy. You go to work every day. You support your family. And the word you used is one that I often refer to: stoic. It is expected, unfortunately, still in 2025, for our men to be stoic. Rub some dirt in it, right?
I have 3 boys that are 8, 10, 13. And even so, I catch myself sometimes when they're upset and being like, stop crying. What are you so upset about? Or telling them to suck it up and move on. And I got to catch myself and be like, no, that's the wrong answer. There's a time and a place sometimes for, certain emotion, there's points where you get that overwhelming rush of emotion and you just want to bawl your eyes out.
Yes.
Unfortunately, in my case, usually that's when I'm in a truck weighing 100,000 pounds driving down the highway, and I can't do that. That is not the time nor the place. Yeah. So I got to hold it. And that's different than not letting it out at all.
Right. To go on that platform and to allow yourself to be so vulnerable and be so seen, to talk about these things that is still taboo, unfortunately, for our men. To me, that's the epitome of a strong man. Someone who has that ability and has that commitment to, you know what, I'm going to break it. I'm going to shatter the mold that these men are put into. You wear a cape too. You may be a blue collar dude, but you got a cape on. And I know before you and I finally got this scheduled, we were talking in messages, and you and I had that same mentality. If we can help just that one person, if we can let them know that it's okay and you're not alone, I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed by the content that you're putting out there.
Thank you.
I did see one, and I love how you brought up your wife, and God love her. I agree. If she's supporting you through this journey, she is an angel. One of the things that I think a lot of people don't realize is that when we are trauma survivors, that trauma, when we repress it and hold on to it, that trauma is going to come out one way or another. And you said that it's been difficult in your marriage. I think that's pretty consistent with trauma survivors. And we have a hard time in our relationships. No worries.
Okay, I'm on a Zoom meeting at the moment. I'll bring it in there in just a minute. All right. Yeah. So you're saying that's consistent with trauma survivors.
I think it is that we struggle with relationships because our emotions are going to come out one way or another.
Absolutely. And I think in my case, which maybe isn't as unique as I used to think it was, is I was raised in a household um, that did not encourage healthy emotional responses. You
Right.
know, I didn't know my dad until I was in my mid 40s or mid 40s, mid 20s, and I don't speak to him now for separate reasons. Um, I had a stepdad who was very physically abusive. You know, my mom was very physically abusive. Um, that was a mutual domestic violence thing with them and with the kids. And in that, as I think is very common, it, uh, emotional responses were anger and lashing out. And it was that typical, if you have something to cry, if you're crying, I'll give you something to cry about, you
Right.
know, um, in combination with, sexual abuses, it twists and it warps and it distorts what a healthy relationship should look like. When
Yes.
you are not raised in an environment and given that example of what a healthy relationship is, how are you supposed to know how to navigate one? How are you supposed to know how to build one when you've never seen one?
Right.
And that was a big part of my struggle with my ex-wife. I was married before, and I can acknowledge I was not a good husband to her.
Hmm.
We were toxic for each other. And with my wife now, like I said, it was rocky, it was rough, but the unhealthy habits of internalizing everything and refusing to talk about it, um, and well, why can't you just accept me for who I am now and quit trying to force me to do something I don't want to do? You know, it makes for a very, at risk of overusing the word, it makes for a very toxic environment
Yeah.
for everybody.
Yeah.
Um, Including your children. And instead of breaking that cycle apart, like my wife and I are actively doing now, you're continuing the cycle,
It is the generational curse.
and it just continues. You
Yeah.
take the things that you hated from your parents, and instead of stopping that, you're giving it to your kids for them to give to their kids, and so on and so forth. And I think the trauma of abuse, across the board, emotional, mental, physical, sexual, it leaves scars that you have to process in a healthy way.
Absolutely.
Um,
Have
that
you seen, and I've been talking about this, I've done a couple of other interviews this week as well. Um, One of the commonalities that we have is that if we're not processing that trauma accurately or properly or in a healthy manner, my maladaptive coping skills resulted in um, you know, unhealthy relationship with food. That was my addiction. Still struggle with that addiction. I've seen alcohol abuse, drug abuse, sexual all over the place. Like, did you have some of those where those outlets, those maladaptive coping skills were coming to the forefront?
um, so I wouldn't say a food addiction, no. Drug addictions, no. I saw what that does to a family,
Yeah,
to a person.
yeah,
I saw that firsthand. So that one I avoided like the plague.
yeah,
Um, Alcohol, I definitely had my struggles with. Um, I am a stress drinker. I get stressed out
yeah.
and I want to drink. I want a glass of Pendleton. I want a Shiner Bock, a beer. Um, and that was something that my wife has been one of my biggest supporters on. Is I haven't had a drink since August 1st of 2022.
Wow.
I haven't touched a drop of it. And it was really hard for a while. It's easier now than it was. It definitely is. It's more of a habit now of just not wanting it. Or I can smell it and be like, ugh, this
Yeah,
is not good at all. you
yeah.
know but in answer to your question, yeah, I definitely did. Because it would make me feel numb.
Correct.
I wouldn't feel it anymore.
Right.
I could completely disassociate and get I could get drunk and it wouldn't bother me anymore until I got
Yeah.
up the next day,
Yeah.
you know. So it was definitely, and I tried the whole, oh, I'll slow it down. I had a really honestly a close call um in 2015,
Mm.
where I got home, or I woke up in the morning to get ready for work and my car was on the front lawn with the door open, still running. And I lived, probably 7 or 8 miles from the bar, up a really narrow, curvy road with steep drop off on one side and no guardrail. I had no memory of it whatsoever. And I tried okay, I need to slow it down. And it worked for a while. I'd have a beer or two, or I'd drink here and there, and I drink there. But over time, that drinking escalated back to the point where, I wasn't drinking and driving, but I wanted to go fight the neighbor at 11:30 at night because his dog was barking to come back in the house, and my wife's in the driveway
Yeah.
pushing me back in the house.
Yeah.
Um, and I got up the next morning and was like, this has got to stop, and it has to stop right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we all, we whatever our, coping maladaptive, albeit skill is, it's all for the same thing. We don't want to feel. I don't want to think about that. I don't want to deal with that. That's overwhelming to me. To me, and it sounds like to you, therapy has been such a godsend because it gives us not only an outlet to purge, but then to kind of dig deep and take those things apart that are causing us to want to, revert to whatever unhealthy habits we have. Your therapy as a man is, you talk about it online. And it is such a taboo, again, for men to say, I go to therapy. Well, we all need therapy as far as I'm concerned.
No, I think every single person on this planet could benefit from therapy, and I'm not actively doing it now. Because it's expensive for one.
Yeah.
I've said time and again, multiple times, that therapy is a commodity for the wealthy, and those that need it the most usually can't afford it. But the therapist that I was seeing for quite some time, she was very direct.
Mm,
And I need that more than somebody who's going to beat around the bush and pussyfoot with me. Be
yeah.
direct with me and be honest with me. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of times people have therapists who just kind of tippy toe, well, I don't want to aggravate that. I think that's good for some people,
Right.
but don't let it discourage you from finding that counselor, therapist, whatever you want to call them, to that's going to directly deal with your problems in a way that works for you, because
Right.
we're all different, right? We
Yeah.
all process trauma differently, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I think is good about therapists, is when you find that good one that works with you, they're not going to be afraid to tell you what you need to hear as opposed to what you want to hear. There's a
Yes.
huge difference. And I think a lot of people go into therapy with the idea that, well, they're not telling me what I want to hear, so I need to leave this. No, that's the wrong answer. You have to go into it with an open mind and say, okay, I may be confronted with some things about myself that I'm not going to like. I
Right.
definitely was.
Oh, yeah.
And you need to be willing to work on those things if you have any desire to improve yourself at all, or
Absolutely.
to process these traumas, or to learn how to process them.
Hmm.
My therapist, she gave me an analogy about therapy and processing. And she had said that growing up, we are equipped with tools from our parents and our mentors, right? And she said some of us, we get brand new, shiny, perfectly greased tools that work as they should, that are
Right.
effective.
Right.
Some of us get tools that have been used, they've been beat up, they haven't been greased or oiled in a while, they haven't been cleaned up, they're a little rusty. We got to sand the rust off, grease them, and we can use them. She said, and some of us are not given tools at all.
Right.
And that's where therapy is huge, in giving you those brand new tools to work with. And that's where I was. I had an empty toolbox. I
Oh, yeah.
thought I knew how to I thought I knew how to deal with it. I thought I can do it. I can do it on my own. I don't need it. I'm a headstrong. I'm an Army veteran. I'm a blue collar dude. I've worked in the oil field. I'm a manly man. I don't need a deal. I don't need that. I can do it myself. when in reality, I wasn't processing anything. I was internalizing it and pushing it down.
Right.
And through her giving me little tools here and there, here's one, here's a new one, here's a new one, here's a new one. She helped bring me to a place where my toolbox was full enough that I'm at a point now that I can, for the most part, process things fairly well. I'm not going to say I'm perfect because I'm not. Nobody is ever perfect, and if you think you are sorely mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, so it's
There
it's a
is
it's a
no,
process.
I always say there's no finish line in healing.
No, and there's no instant fix either. It is
No.
a process. It is
Right.
a painful, difficult, heart wrenching, long process,
Right.
and that's whether you're going through using just a support system of friends and family that are willing to be there to be that support system, or you're going through a licensed therapist. It is not an overnight fix. Your trauma didn't affect you overnight. It's not going to be fixed and processed overnight.
Right. Right. Totally agree. Totally
And,
agree.
and let me rephrase that. Some traumas may have happened in one isolated incident. And what
Yeah.
I mean by it doesn't affect you overnight is sometimes those traumas take time to really root themselves in and start having an effect on you. Just
Mm-hmm.
just to clarify what I mean by that, I don't want any confusion from anybody.
I know you are at work. I don't want to keep you a whole lot of time. And I know, initially our intent was to kind of come on here and let you share your story. But I think
Mm-hmm.
the message that you have shared is even more powerful. And I think your story, I really would rather push people to your content. You have earned that, you deserve that. And so when we do drop this, I'm absolutely going to have all your links in there. Um, I'm beyond honored.
Thank you.
I am honestly beyond honored to be able to give you a space to express yourself, to talk about this. Um, you have to keep going.
Oh, I
Keep
will be.
keep doing
That's
it.
that's who I am. I'm a fighter. I'm a survivor. I have scars, physical ones, mental ones, emotional ones.
Mhm.
Um, The Greatest Showman. I took my boys to see that movie,
I love that movie.
and there's that song, "This Is Me,"
Yep.
and I was sitting in the theater with my two boys. Um, I'm like I said, I'm a grown dude. I am a full grown man.
Hmm.
I'm broad shouldered, broad chest. I'm hard. As blue collar as they come.
Yeah.
I was in that theater with just I could not stop sobbing because of how hard that song hit. And I still listen to it sometimes and it still does the same thing because
Yep.
it's it's so powerful. Music is a powerful thing. And that's one of the ways I've always expressed myself the best is with
Hmm.
music,
Hmm.
because this is who I am. I am scarred. I've been hurt. There's parts of me that are damaged, but I am not broken.
That's
And
right.
nothing will ever break me. I
That's
am
how that's how I
I
got
am
my
too
name
strong.
Unbreakable. That's how I got the name Unbreakable. I'm with you on that. I am absolutely with you on that. James, I want to make sure that we get you back to work. If you will hold on one
Sure.
second, I'm going to say my goodbyes and then I'll stop the recording. We'll chat for just a second more, excuse me.
Thank you.
Y'all continue to speak up, continue to speak out, continue to understand that you are not alone and you are not crazy. There is power in our voices. We have to continue using them. Y'all go be unbreakable.